Corinne, hello dear.
Alright.
A simple question for you. Today I'm talking about a free vibration. When you hear the words free vibration or healthy vibration, what does that indicate to you? What do you consider to be free and healthy in the form of a vibration? What is that?
I guess for me, there are really two aspects to that. First, there's the absence of the feeling of a lot of work taking place in the throat. And second, there's a sense of freedom, ease, and comfort with the feeling of the resonance being sort of taken up and out of that throat space. A lot of new students are always surprised to hear that singing isn't supposed to feel arduous and effortful and uncomfortable, and that they shouldn't have to feel a lot of work being done in the throat. True, the larynx is in the throat and the voice is produced by the larynx, but when they try to help it along, they tend to do more harm than good. And so those who are surprised by this idea are singers who have a tendency to muscle and push their way through all vocalization, including speech. And so they tend to squeeze and strive and strain whenever they use their voices, and especially, of course, as pitch rises when they're singing. And they have made this faulty assumption in their heads that if singing is easy and free and comfortable, they mustn't be doing it correctly. So then they feel like they have to try even harder. And part of the problem is that they tend to see singing technique as sort of an aberration from normal voice functioning that they use during speaking tasks. So in their minds, they can't seem to connect the two. They always see speaking and singing technique as somehow being almost functionally distinct from each other, rather than viewing singing technique as being merely an extension of that same functioning. Once they begin to experience how comfortable and free the voice truly can be, they begin to wonder why they ever thought it necessarily required more effort to begin with. So one of my goals as a teacher is to try to help students move the sensations of resonance and the work up and out of that lower throat space. And I do this mainly through teaching the concept of an open and relaxed throat, which helps to optimize the authentic resonating spaces and balance out the tone to produce that distinctive ring in the voice, but also through things like teaching appropriate registration shifts and good management of the breath. And this often involves changing their thinking as well about, how they approach singing. The sensations associated with good tonal balance, they're identifiable and repeatable, and above all else, they're freedom inducing. So resonance balance, the vibratory sensations associated with them come when the instrument is free to function as it's intended to, and when we're not sort of helping it along with our efforts. I never tell a student where he or she should be feeling those sympathetic vibrations during singing or how intense those sensations should be, because it's different for every singer at every pitch and every vowel. Even when the resonance is perfectly balanced between the higher and lower overtones and the lighter and darker aspects or colors of tone, we still will not feel the vibrations in the same places or experience them in the same ways as the next singer. So, the interior dimensions of our instruments are different, our articulation patterns are unique to us. And to demand that a student feel the sympathetic vibrations exactly as I do, for example, is inviting trouble, which includes everything from discomfort to injury to dysfunction and technical complications that cause an inability to get the voice to do what they want it to do. And so, of course, progress is stalled. And the student will likely end up overcompensating in an effort to try to move the resonance or place the voice differently. And this may require them to abandon their unique instrument's healthy articulation function.
What I love about what you just said, it just reminds me, my oldest student 2 years ago said to me, singing's so different now. I feel so hollow. And when he said that, when you just said what you just said, about this whole idea that we feel things differently. Another student who'd only been with me a shorter time confirmed that same feeling, but she said, I feel without a mechanism. She felt without a function. And I thought this was very interesting. Both of them talking about something that wasn't closed and mechanical, even though it might seem that way. Both were talking about space.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, the other interesting thing about these sympathetic vibrations, as I mentioned, they can kind of serve as accurate indicators of resonance balance. And because they are identifiable and repeatable and sort of predictable, they become familiar to the singer. One of the really interesting things is if ever a singer is in a situation where he or she can't hear himself or herself properly, let's say the vocal monitors, just the mix is wrong, either floor monitors or in-ear monitors, one of the things that singers tend to do is they try to push and they try to muscle so that they can hear themselves over all of the other noise and other instruments and amps. And so one of the things I really try to instill in my students is this idea that you need to trust your body. You need to memorize those sensations once you know that the balance is there, and you need to learn to trust your body and rely on those familiar sensations. You actually get to a point where you can, even without perfect pitch, you can start to identify where you are in the scale. Just based on those particular sensations on a particular vowel. So, your high C, you could probably guess within maybe a semitone when you're at a high C, for example. And so I try to tell students and teach them that when you're in a situation like that where you don't hear yourself as well, you're actually going to do more harm than good, and your voice is going to sound terrible if you try to push through that. But if you actually trust and that memorize those familiar sensations, then you get to a point where you can just sing through the song, even if you don't hear yourself very well, and sort of just know that you sang it well, even if you couldn't hear yourself perfectly well.
For the audience we have today, and I'm speaking in the future, of course, what you've just said actually makes a wonderful kind of full stop to everything, because there are many examples of healthy singing in the classical world, and we always look at the classical world as being the healthy place, but it should be noted that you are a contemporary singer. And that healthy singing can be had in the popular world. Corinne, thank you ever so much. Well, Daryl, one of the things that I really liked when we were speaking not that long ago was how you described freedom in singing. And if I said to you, free vibration, free voice, what immediately comes to mind?
Well, if I think of have an 8-month-old baby who can scream at the top of her lungs for 10 minutes, and yet I know that her larynx is totally healthy, totally fine. She is just having a good time, just letting us know something. And I can hear that from 3 or 4 rooms away. But I know for a fact that her vocal cords are healthy. There will not be any nodes on those cords. So I have when I say to my students, and they can be any voice size, when you find the place, the nothing place, when you just don't feel anything, that's when you're singing the best. And you can be carrying at the Met, Carnegie Hall, massive, a big auditorium, but that's always going to carry because you're producing it the right way, using the right support, right resonators. I'm all into resonators. And that I use this the least, that's the last thing I want to be tiring out. I want to be physically tired, but feeling nothing here. So for me, I call it the nothing place. Or when it's really good out of the body experience, where you just see it happening, feel it, know it's happening, and you're just kind of on the periphery of it, actually.
You said that you want to be physically tired.
Yes, very much so.
Right, but feel nothing.
Yeah, I want my students to usually go away with sweaty armpits, and they're sweating, but not hardly anything happening here. But there's big sounds being produced. I mean, if it was soft singing or off the voice, that would be worse. That would not be good. That would be using this too much. So is just singing the best healthy way they can.
That's a perfect answer. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.